World of Warcraft housing looks really dang good and far better than I ever thought it could. And Blizzard just put up another update in regards to player housing in World of Warcraft, this time talking about rewards, so let's get into it, let's read it, let's find out how this all works. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls, and let's get right on into this. Knowing what tools you have to decorate your home is one thing, but knowing how and where to get your decor is another. Step into our showroom as we open our catalog on housing rewards and share more information about what you can expect when seeking to outfit your Azeroth home in style. 0 out of 10, you should have said welcome to my parlor. Welcome home, adventurers! At the end of our previous article, we asked a few questions regarding the source of decorations and how professions fit in. Today, we're going to answer those questions, talk through our philosophies for housing rewards, and provide a few more details on the decoration quote-unquote economy. Before starting, we wanted to state our usual disclaimer. This is still a work in progress, and names and details may change between now and launch, but this is directionally where we're aiming. Personally speaking, I quite like the communication they've been having and giving out in regards to housing. It's been clear, it's been thorough, and it's done a good job of making me way more excited when it comes to player housing in World of Warcraft. I really like that edit mode they showed off the last time. So let's see how we actually acquire stuff for housing, which arguably is one of the most important elements of player housing. Setting up our guiding principles, we began our discussions by drafting a few guiding principles to inform our design. Progressive journey. Similar to a housing pillar of long-lasting journey, players should expect the collection of decor to be just that, a journey. The collection of the perfect room and house is something to strive towards, not run to a vendor and complete on day one. Furthermore, this journey should be engaging and possible for most players, regardless of how quote-unquote hardcore or not they may be. Put another way, getting any single piece of decor should eventually be possible, but getting everything should be incredibly difficult. So it's not available all at once, and we're gonna have to work/grind to get like everything at some point in time. Next bullet point. Core gameplay with variations. Similarly, we want to reward decor through a wide variety of our core gameplay in World of Warcraft. We don't want decor to come from only housing specific activities, though some will, but instead meet you where you are, however you choose to enjoy the game, whether that's solo questing, crafting decor with professions and using the auction house, running dungeons with your friends, or raiding with your guild. Reverence for the past. Some of you have been playing for 20 years and we want that time to feel worthwhile. Your past adventures and time spent in Azeroth means your collection will have a leg up and won't start from square one when you first purchase a house. That to me sounds as if there's going to be quite a few things rewarded through achievements, and that retroactively, certain achievements from the past and in previous expansions will at some point now reward housing items. So if you already have those achievements, to me it sounds as if you're just gonna have all that stuff unlocked by default. Sounds good to me, and I like the idea of having stuff themed for each expansion. That's great, but what do these mean in practice? It's about the journey, not the decoration. The progressive journey principle means that the majority of decor types, e.g. chair, bed, shelf, etc., are considered commodities and are readily available from vendors, other players via the auction house, spoiler, questing, and so on. If you want a wooden chair, it's very easy and inexpensive to acquire. Next, there's investment decor, which are generally more niche items in either theming, looks, or appeal, which require more time and or cost investment. Examples could be a sparkling fountain with particle effects or magical books that flap about on their own. There's a part of my brain that reads this as all the elf items most people are gonna want, you're gonna need to put some work in for them. Lastly, there are what we think of as quote-unquote trophies. These are things that require skillful play, cooperation with other players, and or larger time commitments. Think along the lines of M+ and raid rewards or long-term achievements. If you're looking to mount a Nixia's head on the wall, you'll have to defeat her and take it. I like the sound of that. I think it's a really cool way to reward more difficult content in the game that's not just gear that'll become borderline obsolete the moment another patch comes out. And if you're particularly proud of a specific in-game achievement that you got, you can showcase that in your house for all to see, or just for your own personal gratification. I think something like that has been long called for in World of Warcraft. It's something a lot of people wanted garrisons to have, or just to be flat out, back in the day of Warlords of Draenor. But it's nice to see it finally be implemented into the game now. One of the powerful aspects of decoration is that since it's cosmetic by nature, placing hard to acquire things throughout the game gives players reach goals that don't hamper their character development and they're free to pursue, or not, just like mounts and transmog. That said, it should be easily possible to kit out your home on day one to strike the vibe you're looking for without too much effort. Your decor journey should start out awesome and continue to be that all along the way. I can already see the internet takes that are gonna spawn in response to like what they're talking about here, and that, oh, housing is designed in such a way to be this massive grind to get more subcosts, and like probably to some degree, sure, but like the way they're talking about housing, and maybe this is the right play, maybe it's not, they want this to be essentially a way you play World of Warcraft, like another big pillar of the game. I think one of the key things to pull this off will be to have plenty of different aesthetics, and I think an important element of that will to be have aesthetics that don't necessarily subscribe to like previous expansion themes or just races overall. You want there to be a lot of bounds for creativity and player expression, and not just my house is Blood Elf, my house is Night Elf, right? You want more than just that. I think one of the important elements they'll have to strike when it comes to player housing in World of Warcraft is to let people kind of break the aesthetic. Maybe not entirely, but to like some degree. Variety is the spice of life. When we first were drafting this article, there was a line that read, "Where can I get decor?" Yes. While pithy, it's not far from the truth either when it comes to a second principle of core gameplay with variations. Decor should come from everywhere and everything. We want you to find decor rewards in all sorts of gameplay, not just a single avenue that you feel forced to interact with over and over. For example, while a specific jade inlaid bookshelf might come from a particular quest in Pandaria, other bookshelves could come from vendors, professions, or other varied forms of content. So it does kind of sound like if you want Pandaria themed stuff, go do Pandaria, which makes a lot of sense. Thanks past self. Finally, the principle of reverence for the past encapsulates a few things. All the time spent in Azeroth is worth something. We're leveraging legacy, reputations, professions, and more. If you've achieved something in the past, we want to embrace that time spent. If you raise your reputation to exalted with someone, you'll be able to purchase their goods right away. If you completed an achievement 10 years ago that rewards a new piece of decor today, you'll be granted that piece of decor on login. That sounds really good to me. That feels like this system rewards you for all the time and effort you've put into the game up to now. And you can see, even in this image right here, they show off Anixia's head. More dots 25 player, defeat Anixia in less than 5 minutes in 25 player mode, and the decor reward is Head of the Broodmother. But that achievement was gotten on this screenshot back in 2016. But retroactively, you get the head. Pause. I just wonder what the rewards for things like Illidan could be. Legacy decor should be well integrated into the appropriate existing content and not feel crowbarred in. For example, using the local systems and currencies of a piece of related content such as Mechagon's junkyard tinkering when it makes sense and as it's available. We're not going to have the decor equivalent of transmog runs, okay? We're still working through what this means in practice. Is it only available during time walking? Is there something more deterministic we can do, etc.? But the thought of someone farming a mount for years across multiple characters every week, finally earning it, and then being told, well, time to go back and grind for the couch, is rough. We'd like to avoid this. I feel like the easy way to do that is to just have the reward come either as like a 100% thing from the final boss or just from the achievement, right? I feel like that has an obvious answer to it. Like one of those two things, probably just go with the achievement once and you're already doing that with Anixia. Harkening again back to the long-lasting journey pillar, we're going to continue fleshing out the core from past expansions in future patches, and they will be earnable via the appropriate content of their expansion. Right, so like as they alluded to earlier, if you go to Mechagon and you want the stuff for Mechagon, you'll need the Mechagon resources. I imagine it's the same deal with like things like Thunder Isle or Timeless Isle, stuff like that. One thing we'd like to give you a heads up about here is that we intend to offer decor rewards for past expansion meta achievements. A World Awoken, Back from the Beyond, and a Farewell to Arms are the 3 currently available. If you think you might be a decor completionist, it's worth starting these in your downtime. At least they give a heads up about that, so people can start grinding that stuff out now instead of being told when this stuff comes out, oh, I need all these meta achievements, I would have liked to have known that up to now, because they may take a while to do. I kind of like to see that we're being rewarded with decoration from seemingly everything here. It's another element that the game really needed to shore up on, and that is just like the sheer things the game rewards you with. Because at some point in time, getting a new pet, getting a new transmog, getting a new mount, or a new title will just get a bit old and tedious. So now, having a whole new pillar of things that can be rewarded to the player to incentivize content, I think that has a ton of potential. It's just going to be really annoying if the one thing you really want comes from something you really don't want to do. Namely, like PvPers having to do PvE content and vice versa, PvE people having to do PvP content. I imagine that's going to be the case, but we'll have to see how it's actually executed. Time for professions. Trust me, I'm a professional. We're not going to bury the lead here. Decor will be crafted by all existing non-gathering primary professions instead of creating a new profession solely dedicated to it. Each profession will be able to craft a few pieces of appropriate decor from each expansion, using that expansion's version of the profession. E.g., to craft something from Mr. Pandaria, you will need the relevant Mr. Pandaria profession at the appropriate level. That could be a pain in the penis. I mean, it's an interesting way to incentivize and reward people that want to dump a bunch of time into professions. And also so, like, old profession archetypes for each expansion aren't just thrown away to the wayside, never to be touched again when a new 0.0 comes around. I feel as if there's pros and cons to this. I can easily see a lot of people being annoyed depending upon like how deep into an expansion you need to be to craft the thing you really want. Like in this picture, for example, a Brill coffin. I imagine if you want like an undead aesthetic, we don't know the level that will be required to actually craft that. Kinda weird that the coffin comes from Inscription though, not gonna lie. But like the account that they're using for the example here is at 280 out of 300 for classic Inscription. Oh, and you can also craft the lid separately. Interesting. Personally, I like the idea of further rewarding professions outside of just like endgame power. Being able to craft stuff for the housing system in the game just feels like a natural thing to do, and I'm kind of glad they're going in that direction. Though it would be potentially extremely annoying if like the one thing you want comes from this profession while the other thing you also want comes from this other one, but from a completely different expansion's profession, so you have to level up that one as well. It could just be a massive grind. I think the balancing will be really important here, and we just kind of have to wait to see. To craft something, players will need not only the required recipe and skill level, but they will also need to gather a new type of decor crafting specific reagent per expansion, as well as any required reagents from that expansion. Also, they're going back to add even new reagents to previous expansions for this. So it's not just a matter of go out and like grind up all the resources from each expansion right now so you can just like omnicraft when it comes out. You'll have to do a bit of additional grinding to get these things. Interesting. In general, like most profession-made goods, crafted decor can be traded to other players or sold in the auction house. I can imagine a few of these things are gonna go for quite the hefty price. Some examples of what some professions will be able to make. Okay. Blacksmithing creates decor made primarily of metal. Enchanting creates magical decor like floating books or glowing orbs. Jewel crafting creates decor like gems and gem-studded objects, as well as being the designated stoneworking profession. Because there's not an actual stoneworking profession, they're just baking it into jewel crafting essentially. Kinda like the coffin for Inscription. So maybe the wood stuff will be with Inscription instead. 2 of the points above should be underscored. Your profession and the levels from past expansions matter, and so do some of the reagents from those expansions. You know, just in case you are looking for something else to do in between now and the launch of housing. Yeah, they really want to allow players to go out and grind up a bunch of stuff right now, so that when housing comes out, and chances are, if you're someone who will care about being a completionist or will want a bunch of stuff for your house, you're probably the type of player that would want to get a head start on this stuff, so they're announcing it now. I gotta imagine housing is still quite a ways away, so it's a good like head start for now. I'm glad they're being like really clear about this essentially. Let people go grind this stuff out now as we're waiting for more content to come online for like the rest of 11.1.5, as we're waiting for 11.2 and then midnight. Let people grind out that stuff now. Some light housekeeping. We want to mention a smattering of related but smaller things as well before we wrap things up. Decorations are only placeable if you have enough of them. Based on how many you've collected, if you want to place 4 chairs, you'll need to collect 4 chairs. Furthermore, collected decorations are shared across your entire Battle.net account, so anything you collect on any character on any of your game accounts is shared across all of them. This sounds to me like if you have an NA account and an EU account, your progression is essentially shared between them. It's a small thing, but I think that will go a long way for a few people. So anything you collect on any character on any of your game accounts is shared across all of them. If you have 4 fountains and place 3 of them on the lawn of your Alliance house, your Horde house will only have 1 available to place. I don't think I like that. That feels like a weird limitation, and maybe it's like a back-end problem for them, but in terms of like a usability thing, that just sounds like a weird limitation. That's just meant for you to grind up a bunch of things if you want a bunch of one item. Maybe it's to try to make really rare items feel rare, but at the same time it's player housing. Just let people be creative and do what they want. I don't particularly see the issue there. This feels like an unnecessary limitation. On the flip side, there's a concept of unique decor that you can only place once, no matter how many copies of it you may have. It doesn't make sense, for example, to place 9 copies of Onyxia's head on your wall, despite how many times you may have killed it. Who cares, though? Alright, you're starting to fumble here, but why? Like, who cares? If someone wants to do that for whatever aesthetic they want, why not just let them? Why make it weirdly limited? The greatness of a housing system in a game, in my opinion, is just putting the tools for customization in the player's hands so they can create whatever wacky thing they want to be able to make. A weird limitation like this, well, yeah, in like a lore perspective makes a bit of sense, but it's player housing. Who cares about the lore here? Let players express themselves how they want in the confines of their own freaking house. Feels weirdly limiting. You'll note a mention of housing-specific activities earlier that might be better worded as neighborhood-specific activities. Okay, so like the neighborhoods, like the zone that you and a bunch of your guildmates or a bunch of, well, neighbors share, where all your houses are on this like instant zone, will have activities to perform to acquire more housing items. We need to see what those actually look like before making any real determination or judgments. We're committed to an ongoing release of new decorations, going both backwards into previous expansions as well as forward with new ones. What do you want to see? I imagine a lot of people will say elf stuff. Okay, I think of all the posts they've done for housing up to this point, this will be the most divisive one. I get the logic with wanting to reward housing stuff from all pieces of content, and I think in the grand scheme of things, it's probably the most healthy for the game. I really like the idea of retroactive rewards. If I already have an achievement or I already have done the criteria for a reward, don't make me go back and do it again. Just give it to me on day one. I like that. I like the idea of trophies. I like the idea of doing something challenging in this game and then being able to like showcase that and show off. Being able to show off and to also see other people show off is an important element of an MMORPG in my opinion. It's a sense of community. You see someone else with something really cool on that you may want to go out and get for yourself that can encourage discussion, or you just checking out that character and then going to try out a piece of content you may not have done originally. So having that feel, that vibe with housing, I think makes a lot of sense and works. It also rewards players for playing the game. However, there's weird limitation when it comes to how many of these things you can actually use. If you want to put down 5 chairs in your house, you have to go get 5 copies of that chair. That is the stuff that feels to me like we're doing this to make it a grind for it to take longer, and I don't see how that adds to the overall experience for the player. I get that their logic is they may want to preserve the, like, mystique surrounding Onyxia's head, but I don't think that's worth it in comparison to limiting player expression when it comes to player housing, which I think will ultimately be one of the most important things for the long-term health of a housing system in World of Warcraft. You want a bunch of different aesthetics, but you also want players to be able to take pre-existing things and be able to make a bunch of new elements from that. If you limit how many copies people have access to, with either a time gate or because it's labeled as unique, that only serves to hamper and limit the system and its full potential in my opinion. I think it's a misstep, and it's something that I would personally advise Blizzard to take a step back on and say, are the pros we believe this to have worth the potential cons? I don't think it is. I like the idea though that professions will have something else to do that isn't just endgame focused. One of World of Warcraft's biggest issues for the longest time was incentivizing and making players feel as if the game is a world and not just a new continent for the expansion. So often did it feel as if the entire game world got limited to just one new continent when a new expansion came around, and we just ignored most of the other places we have been to up to that point in time. World of Warcraft, for a lot of people, the world started to feel smaller and smaller. And while occasionally a quest may take you to like a previous location, I think something like housing incentivizing players to go back to previous expansions, to partake in that content, to immerse yourself in that content, could be a great step in the right direction to making the world of World of Warcraft feel like a world again. I don't think it'll do it by itself, but I think it's a good and possibly even great step in the right direction. Maybe there's even an argument to be made where you implement like a level sync type of system for each of the expansions, and if you like sync your level down to the appropriate level for that content, maybe you get like more reagents or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking that. But yeah, I think there's pros, I think there's cons to what they're talking about here. I think the reward structure and how you actually accrue more housing items will be one of the most important elements to the housing system. There's a lot going right for this, but this could be a potential pitfall if the balancing and implementation is way too grindy and just unfun. But I think there are some massive benefits to what they're proposing here. I would still advise them to just go back on this like weird limitation for how many of each item you can use. Doesn't feel necessary to me. Could be a back-end problem, but if it's not, I do not think the pros outweigh the cons. And with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games if you can. Leave a comment down below with your own thoughts, your opinions on the reward structure for player housing. Do you like what they're talking about here? Do you not like what they're talking about here? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and to hear your perspective. Stay safe, have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.